Hello listener, if you're hearing this, you've probably ridden a school bus at some point in your life. That yellow metal box with the hard seats and the diesel smell. You rode it to school and back, maybe complaining about the bumpy ride or the loud kids. 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back, then you got off and never thought about it again. Never thought about what it would be like to live in one. To turn one into a fortress. To spend 100 days trapped inside 35 feet of yellow metal while a Montana winter tried to freeze you to death and zombies tried to break in and eat you. If you're new to this channel, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're listening from. My name is Outbreak FM and I tell stories about surviving the apocalypse. Real stories. Detailed stories. Stories that don't skip the hard parts, the boring parts, the terrifying parts. This is the story of Sarah Mitchell, a school bus driver who made one decision on the first day of the outbreak that saved her life and nearly destroyed her mind. She fortified her bus and lived in it for 100 days. This is how she survived. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 35 years old. Before the world ended, I drove Route 47 for Flathead County schools in Montana. I picked up 23 kids from 14 different stops, spread across 32 miles of rural roads, drove them to school, then did the reverse route in the afternoon. I'd been driving bus for 6 years when the outbreak started. It was good work, $38,000 a year with benefits. Summers off, home by 4 p.m. every day. Required a commercial driver's license with passenger and school bus endorsements. Required patience with kids. Required the ability to handle a 35-foot vehicle weighing 36,000 pounds. Fully loaded on narrow country roads in all weather conditions. Montana weather. That's important, because Montana doesn't have mild winters. Montana has brutal winters. Temperatures that drop to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit regularly. Blizzards that dump 3 feet of snow in 24 hours. Wind that cuts through any clothing. Cold that kills you in minutes if you're not prepared. I'd driven my bus in all of it. Had snow chains. Had winter diesel fuel additives to prevent the fuel from gelling. Had emergency supplies in case I got stranded with kids. I knew winter. I respected winter. I understood that in Montana, winter killed people every year. Killed the unprepared. Killed the unlucky. Killed the stupid. But knowledge saved my life. Because when the outbreak happened, when I made the split-second decision to fortify my bus instead of trying to reach town, I understood what I was facing. I understood that I was choosing to spend a Montana winter in a vehicle designed for short trips, not long-term survival. I understood the risks, and I chose them anyway because the alternative infected tearing me apart was worse. Let me tell you about my bus. It was a 2019 Bluebird Vision. Bluebird is one of the major school bus manufacturers in America. The Vision model is their standard full-size bus, 35 feet long, 8 feet wide, 10 feet tall. Built on a Freightliner chassis with a 6.7-liter Cummins diesel engine. The engine produced 260 horsepower and 660 pound-feet of torque. More than enough to move the 25,000-pound empty bus or the 36,000-pound loaded bus. The fuel tank held 100 gallons of diesel. At highway speeds, the bus got about 7 miles per gallon, so a full tank gave roughly 700 miles of range. That's important later. The bus had 72 passenger capacity, but that was calculated for elementary school kids. The seats were sized for small children. Each seat was 39 inches wide and could fit 3 small kids or 2 teenagers or 1 adult uncomfortably. There were 24 rows of seats, 12 on each side of the center aisle. The aisle was 12 inches wide, barely wide enough to walk through with a backpack. The ceiling was 6 feet 6 inches at the center, sloping down to 5 feet at the sides. I'm 5 feet 7 inches, so I had to duck when I walked down the aisle. The bus had 22 windows, 11 on each side. Large windows. Each window was roughly 4 feet wide by 2 feet tall. They were designed as emergency exits. Every window could be pushed out from inside in an emergency. There were also 2 doors, the main entry door at the front, controlled by the driver, and an emergency exit door at the rear, plus 4 roof hatches for emergency evacuation. The bus was designed with safety as the top priority: multiple exits, reinforced steel frame, high ground clearance, visibility from all angles. That design, those safety features would become both my salvation and my prison. The reinforced steel frame meant the bus could take a beating from infected without collapsing. The high ground clearance meant infected couldn't easily get under the bus. But those 22 large windows were vulnerabilities. The emergency exits were weaknesses, and the minimal insulation, because buses are designed for short trips with the engine running and heater on, meant the bus would become a freezer the moment I shut off the engine. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about day 1. About the day I made the decision that defined the next 100 days of my life. October 28, 2024. A Tuesday. Temperature was around 45 degrees Fahrenheit, cool but comfortable. Partly cloudy. Normal autumn day in Montana. I started my afternoon route at 2:30 p.m. like always. Picked up kids from the elementary school first, then the middle school, then started my route through the rural areas. The kids were their usual selves, loud, energetic, excited about Halloween coming up. I had a 7th grader dressed as a vampire even though Halloween was still 3 days away. Had a 3rd grader who'd lost a tooth and was showing everyone. Normal day, normal route. I was about halfway through, roughly 3:30 p.m. Had dropped off maybe 10 kids and still had 13 on the bus when my radio crackled. It was dispatched. All buses, this is dispatch. Emergency recall. Return all students to school immediately. Repeat, emergency recall. Do not complete your routes. Return to school. Acknowledge. I picked up the radio handset. Dispatch. This is bus 47. What's the nature of the emergency? We're 20 miles from school. Bus 47 and no details available at this time. Administration orders. Return students to school immediately. That was wrong. Emergency recalls happened maybe once or twice a year, usually for severe weather, tornado warnings, that kind of thing. But the weather was fine. Clear roads. No storms visible. I looked at my GPS. I was 20 miles from the school, deep in rural territory. It would take me 40 minutes to get back to school. Longer if I had to navigate through traffic. Dispatch. I'm requesting more information. Should I be concerned about road conditions? Weather. What's the threat? No information available. Bus 47. Just returned to school. All buses are being recalled. I looked in my mirror at the kids. They'd heard the conversation. Some of the older ones looked worried. I made a decision, not the big decision yet, but the first decision in a chain that would lead to 100 days in this bus. Dispatch. I'm going to complete my route. Get these kids home to their families. I'm 20 miles out. By the time I get back to school, I could have half these kids already home. I'm completing the route. Bus 47 negative. Return to school. That's an order. Dispatch. I'm using my discretion as driver. These kids are safer at home with their families than at school. I'm completing the route. Bus 47 out. I hung up the handset before they could argue. Kept driving. Started running my route faster, not dangerously fast, but skipping the usual small talk with kids. Rushing the stops. Get kids off. Get moving. Get to the next stop. My phone started buzzing. Emergency alerts. Emergency alert. Violent outbreak reported in multiple locations. Shelter in place. Avoid contact with affected individuals. More information to follow. I glanced at the phone. Violent outbreak. Affected individuals. That could mean anything. Riots, terrorism, mass shooting. I didn't have time to process it. Had to focus on getting kids home. The older kids were checking their phones now. I heard one of them say, "My mom says there's zombies. Says people are attacking each other downtown." Zombies. That word, I'd heard it before in movies, in games. Never thought I'd hear it in a real emergency alert context. But I didn't have time to think about it. Had 13 kids on the bus. Had to get them home. I completed the route in record time. 30 minutes to drop off all remaining kids. Every stop I watched the parents' faces. Saw fear. Saw confusion. Saw them grab their kids and run inside. Saw them looking at their phones, at the sky, at the roads, expecting something terrible. Last stop was the Henderson farm. 4:15 p.m. 3 kids got off. Mrs. Henderson came running out. "Sarah, what's happening?" "The news says there's some kind of infection. People attacking each other. Is it safe? Should we evacuate?" "I don't know, Mrs. Henderson. Get your kids inside. Lock the doors. Stay away from populated areas. I have to get back to the yard." I lied. I wasn't going back to the yard. The yard was in town, 40 miles away. Town was where the outbreak would be worse. Population density, chaos, panic. I'd heard enough on the radio to know that going to town was suicide, but I couldn't tell her that. Couldn't cause more panic. I pulled away from the Henderson farm. Now I was alone on the bus. All kids delivered. My responsibility fulfilled. Now I had to figure out how to survive. I tried calling my family. Parents lived in Kalispell 30 miles north. Brother lived in Missoula 120 miles south. Neither answered. Just busy signals or straight to voicemail. The cell network was overloaded. I tried the radio again. The normal channels were chaos dispatch screaming for help. Other drivers reporting incidents. Police and emergency services overwhelmed. I switched to AM/FM radio. Found a news station still broadcasting. Reports of violent individuals attacking people in multiple cities across Montana. Billings, Missoula, Great Falls, Kalispell reporting incidents. Authorities are describing the individuals as exhibiting extreme aggression and complete disregard for safety. Multiple casualties confirmed. Citizens are advised to shelter in place and avoid the broadcast cutoff. Replaced by automated emergency alert. This is an emergency action notification. The outbreak of violent illness continues. All citizens should shelter in secure locations. Do not travel, do not attempt to reach hospitals or emergency services. They are overwhelmed. Shelter in place. Wait for further instructions. I looked at my fuel gauge, full tank 100 gallons. I looked at my location on GPS. I was on County Road 47, middle of nowhere, 40 miles from town. Nearest house was a mile away. Nearest populated area was 15 miles. I could try to drive to town, try to reach my family, try to get to the bus yard, get home, get to safety. But the radio was saying don't travel, was saying populated areas were dangerous, and I'd seen the faces of those parents, seen the fear. Whatever was happening, it was bad. Going to town might mean death, or I could stay here, find a place to hide, wait it out. This would blow over in a few days, right? Authority would handle it. Military, National Guard, something. I just needed to survive a few days. I made the decision. I pulled off the county road onto a dirt Forest Service road. I used it sometimes to turn the bus around if I missed a stop. Drove a quarter mile into the forest, found a small clearing, maybe 50 feet across. Trees on all sides, hidden from the county road. Private, isolated. I parked the bus, shut off the engine, sat in silence. This was now my home, this bus. For however long this took. Days, weeks, maybe longer. I had no idea it would be 100 days. Had no idea what I was about to endure. Had no idea that this decision, parking my bus in a clearing in the Montana forest, was the decision that would save my life and nearly destroy my mind. Day 1 continued. I took inventory of what I had. Started with the bus itself. Full tank of diesel, 100 gallons engine, fully functional, well-maintained battery, charged, new replaced 2 months ago tires, good condition, proper inflation heater, works perfectly, diesel-powered lights, all functioning windows, all intact for now doors. Both functional, lockable from inside. The bus was in perfect mechanical condition. I'd done a full inspection that morning, part of the pre-trip routine every driver does. Oil was good, coolant was good, belts were good, everything was perfect. This bus could run for months if I had fuel. Fuel, that was the critical resource. 100 gallons. The Cummins engine burned about 1 gallon per hour while idling with the heater on. If I ran the heater 24/7, the fuel would last 100 hours, just over 4 days. But if I rationed it, ran the heater only when necessary, I could make it last much longer. 1 hour per day would make it last 100 days. 2 hours per day would make it last 50 days. I did the math in my head. Today was October 28th. Montana winter, serious winter with sub-zero temperatures, usually started in mid-December and lasted through February. That was roughly 90 days of brutal cold. If I could make my fuel last 90 to 100 days, I'd survive winter. Then spring would come. Temperatures would rise. I wouldn't need heat to survive, so I needed to make 100 gallons last approximately 100 days. 1 gallon per day. 1 hour of heat per day. That was my budget. Next, I inventoried supplies, personal items, my purse, wallet, ID, $83 cash, credit cards, keys, all useless now. My phone dying battery, no signal, my lunch bag, half a sandwich, apple, granola, bar, 1 meal, 1 water bottle, 20 ounces, nearly empty work clothes, jeans, t-shirt, light jacket, work boots. That's it. That's everything I personally had. Bus emergency supplies, first aid kit, bandages, antiseptic, pain relievers, basic medical supplies, emergency blanket, mylar, thin but warm flashlight, LED, battery-powered road flares, 3 fire extinguisher, 5-pound ABC type basic tools, wrench, screwdriver, pliers in a small toolkit under the seats, lost and found items from months of kids. For jackets, various sizes, forgotten by kids, 3 water bottles, empty or nearly empty, 2 lunch bags, forgotten lunches, both old, probably spoiled, 1 blanket, kids' fleece blanket, various small items, pencils, toys, papers useless in the bus storage compartments, tire chains for winter driving, jumper cables, spare parts, fuses, bulbs, windshield washer, fluid, useless toolkit, more extensive than the emergency one, wrenches, sockets, screwdrivers, total usable supplies, food, 1 meal, my lunch, water, less than 1 day's worth, heat, 100 days if rationed, perfectly medical, basic first aid, clothing, my clothes, plus for kids' jackets, tools, good selection for bus maintenance and improvisation. It wasn't much. I had enough food for maybe one day, enough water for a few hours. I was going to starve or die of thirst within days if I didn't find more supplies. I looked outside. The sun was setting about 5:30 p.m. in late October. The forest was getting dark. Temperature was dropping probably down to 35 degrees Fahrenheit by now. I could see my breath inside the bus. I had decisions to make. First, heat. Did I run the heater now or wait until it got colder? My rule was 1 hour per day. When should I use that hour? I decided 30 minutes in the evening now, 30 minutes in the morning. Split my hour between the coldest parts of the day, early morning and late evening. That seemed optimal. I started the engine. The familiar rumble of the diesel. Turned on the heater. Warm air started flowing immediately. The bus began warming up. Within 10 minutes, the interior temperature had risen from 35 degrees Fahrenheit to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. By 20 minutes, it was 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Comfortable, almost pleasant. I sat in the driver's seat and ate my lunch. Half a sandwich, turkey and cheese, a little stale. The apple was bruised but edible. The granola bar was crushed but fine. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. It was my last known meal. After this, I'd have to find food somehow. At exactly 30 minutes, I shut off the engine. The heater stopped. The warmth began fading immediately. Within 5 minutes, I could feel the cold creeping back in. Within 30 minutes, the temperature had dropped to 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Within an hour, back to 35 degrees Fahrenheit, the same as outside. This bus had no insulation. It was designed for short trips with the engine running constantly. It couldn't hold heat. Every degree of warmth I generated with the heater would be lost within an hour of shutting off the engine. I wrapped myself in the emergency blanket and the jackets I'd found, tried to make a comfortable sleeping arrangement on the bus seats. But bus seats aren't designed for sleeping. They're 39 inches wide, not wide enough to lie flat unless you're a small child. They're covered in hard vinyl, no cushioning. They're shaped to keep kids upright, not to provide comfort for extended use. I tried lying across the seat. Too narrow, my shoulders hung off the edge. I tried curling up. Uncomfortable, the seat shape didn't support my body. I tried using 2 seats, lying with my torso on one seat and my legs on the seat behind it. Better, but the gap between seats meant my lower back had no support. I finally settled on a position, lying diagonally across 2 seats, using rolled up jackets as pillows, wrapped in the emergency blanket and the fleece blanket from Lost and Found. Not comfortable, but tolerable. Maybe I could sleep like this. I couldn't. The cold was too much. The discomfort was too much. The fear was too much. Every sound outside made me jump. Every branch snapping, every animal moving, every gust of wind. I thought it was infected. Thought they'd found me. Thought they were surrounding the bus. I lay in the dark, didn't want to use the flashlight and drain the batteries, staring at the ceiling of the bus, shivering, terrified, exhausted but unable to sleep. This was day 1, the first of 100, and I already knew this was going to be hell. Day 2 started with sunrise about 7 a.m. I hadn't really slept. Maybe dozed for an hour total in small increments. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't shut off. Kept thinking about my family. Kept wondering if they were alive. Kept replaying the emergency broadcasts in my head. I started the engine for my morning heating session. 30 minutes, watched the fuel gauge carefully. The needle barely moved 1 gallon out of 100. I had 99 gallons left. 99 days of heat if I maintained this discipline. While the bus warmed up, I assessed my situation in daylight, looked out the windows at the clearing. Trees on all sides, mostly pine, some aspen. The forest was thick, good cover. Nobody would see the bus from the road. Nobody would stumble on me by accident. But that isolation was a problem too. Nobody would find me if I needed help. Nobody would rescue me. I was completely alone, 40 miles from town, hidden in a forest clearing. If something went wrong, if I got injured, got sick, if the bus broke down, I would die here, alone. Nobody would know. I checked my phone. Battery was at 40%, had been charging it periodically in the bus's USB port, but that required running the engine. Signal was completely dead. No cell service, no data, no way to communicate with anyone. The phone was basically a camera and flashlight now. I needed to conserve the battery. Turned it off completely. Only turn it on if absolutely necessary. Water was my immediate crisis. I'd finished my water bottle, had maybe 8 ounces total from the various bottles I'd found under seats. Not enough. Human body needs about 2 liters per day, minimum 64 ounces. I had maybe 8 ounces. I'd be severely dehydrated by tomorrow if I didn't find more water. I looked outside. Saw frost on the ground. Saw my breath condensing on the bus windows. Temperature was probably 30 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Below freezing overnight. Then I realized I could melt frost, could collect frost and snow. Montana was heading into winter. Snow would come soon. When it did, I'd have unlimited water. Just needed to survive until the first snow. But that might be days away. Weeks away. First significant snow in this area usually came in mid-November. I was in late October. 2 weeks minimum until snow. I couldn't wait that long. I needed to find water now. I grabbed an empty water bottle and left the bus for the first time since parking yesterday. The air outside was shockingly cold after sitting in the heated bus. My breath came out in huge clouds. The ground was hard with frost. I walked carefully, didn't want to leave obvious tracks. Didn't want to make noise that might attract infected. I walked into the forest, looked for water sources. This was Montana, there had to be streams, ponds, something. The forest was fed by snowmelt and rain. Water had to be here somewhere. I found a small stream about 200 yards from the bus. Barely a stream, more like a trickle. Maybe 6 inches wide, an inch deep. But it was flowing water, moving water. Less likely to be contaminated than standing water. I knelt down, filled my water bottle directly from the stream. The water was ice cold, clear, looked clean. But I had no way to purify it. No filter, no purification tablets. No way to boil it, couldn't risk fire. The smoke would attract attention. I'd have to drink it untreated and hope for the best. Hope it was clean enough. Hope I didn't get sick from bacteria or parasites. Because if I got sick, dysentery, giardia, anything that caused dehydration, I'd die. Simple as that. I drank deeply. The water was shockingly cold. Made my teeth ache, but it was water. My body absorbed it desperately. I drank the entire bottle, refilled it, drank again. Probably consumed a liter in 5 minutes. Then I heard something. Movement in the forest. Not animal movement. Sound. Too purposeful, too aggressive. I froze, listened, heard it again. Closer now. Something moving through the underbrush, coming toward me. I ran, didn't think, just ran. Back toward the bus. Crashed through the forest. Didn't care about noise anymore. Just needed to reach the bus, reach safety. I burst into the clearing, saw the bus, ran to it, yanked open the front door, hadn't locked it. Stupid mistake. Jumped inside, slammed the door closed, hit the door lever that locked it from inside. Looked out the window. Saw it emerge from the forest. An infected, first one I'd seen up close. It had been a man, maybe 40 years old, wearing hunting clothes, vest, camouflage pants, boots, but moving wrong, jerking, stumbling. Face was pale, eyes were bloodshot, mouth was opening and closing reflexively. Hands were reaching, grasping at nothing. It saw the bus, stopped, stared, probably trying to process what it was seeing. Then it started walking toward the bus, not running. Infected, didn't run, I'd noticed. They walked fast, moved aggressively, but didn't actually sprint. Probably couldn't coordinate their muscles well enough for sprinting. It reached the bus, started pushing on it, pressing its hands against the metal exterior, trying to find a way in. It walked around the bus slowly, pushing on windows, pulling on doors, testing everything. I sat perfectly still, didn't make noise, didn't move, just watched it circle the bus. The infected spent maybe 20 minutes examining the bus. Then it gave up, wandered off into the forest, gone. I sat there shaking. That was my first real encounter with infected. First time seeing one up close. First time understanding what I was dealing with. These things were relentless. Didn't give up easily, didn't get distracted or bored. Just focused on finding prey, on finding me. The bus had protected me. The metal exterior, the locked doors, the elevated floor, all of it had kept the infected outside. But I'd gotten lucky. It had been one infected. Alone, unaggressive relatively. If there had been multiple infected, if they'd been more aggressive, if they'd figured out how to break windows, I might be dead. I needed to fortify this bus. Needed to turn it into a real fortress. Because more infected would come, and next time, I might not be so lucky. I spent the rest of day 2 planning fortifications. Walked around the bus interior, looked at the windows, looked at the doors, identified weak points, figured out how to reinforce them. The windows were the biggest vulnerability. There were 22 of them. Each window was large, 4 feet wide, 2 feet tall, made of safety glass, tempered, not laminated. That meant if they broke, they'd shatter completely into small pieces rather than staying intact. That was bad. Shattered window meant infected could reach through easily, could grab me, could pull me out, could get inside. I needed to protect the windows without removing visibility completely. Needed to see out, needed to watch for infected, needed to see threats coming, but also needed to prevent infected from breaking through. I looked at the bus seats. There were 72 seats total. Each seat was a steel frame covered in vinyl, bolted to the floor with 4 heavy-duty bolts. Each seat weighed maybe 50 pounds. Heavy, solid, potentially useful as barriers. I started unbolting seats, used the tools from the bus storage: socket wrench, adjustable wrench, screwdrivers. The bolts were tight, hadn't been removed since the bus was manufactured. Took significant effort to loosen them. My hands blistered within an hour, but I kept going. First seat took 20 minutes to remove. Second seat took 15 minutes. I was getting better at it. By the 6th seat, I was down to 10 minutes per seat. I removed 12 seats total on day 2. 12 seats, 12 empty bolt holes in the floor, 12 heavy steel frames I could use for fortification. I positioned the removed seats against the interior of the windows, created barriers. The idea was simple. If something hit the window from outside, it would hit the seat first. The seat would absorb the impact, would protect the glass, would make it much harder to break through. I secured the seats using bungee cords from the emergency kit and rope I found in storage. Lashed them to the window frames, to the seat rails still bolted to the floor, to any solid anchor point I could find. Made them as secure as possible. By the end of day 2, I'd fortified 6 windows, 3 on each side of the bus, left side and right side, front section. The rest would have to wait for day 3. I was exhausted. My hands were bleeding from blisters. My back was screaming from bending over constantly, but I had protection. 6 windows were now fortified. 6 fewer vulnerabilities. That night, day to night, I heard infected outside. Multiple infected. Maybe 3 or 4 based on the sounds. They didn't approach. The bus might not have noticed it in the darkness, but they were close. Within 100 yards, I could hear them moving through the forest. Hear them making those sounds. That wet breathing. That groaning. I lay in the dark, wrapped in blankets, listening to them, praying they wouldn't find the bus, praying they'd pass by. Eventually, they did. The sounds faded. They moved on. I survived day 2. Day 3, I continued fortifying, removed another 12 seats, positioned them against the remaining windows. By the end of day 3, all 22 windows had interior barriers. The bus was much darker inside now. The seats blocked a lot of light, but much safer. I also created gun ports. I didn't have a gun, not yet, but I might find one. Might scavenge one from an abandoned vehicle or house. And if I did, I'd want to be able to shoot from inside the bus without opening doors or windows. I used my pocket knife, small knife from my keychain, to cut small holes in the vinyl covering of the seat barriers. Cut holes about 2 inches in diameter. Just big enough to see through clearly. Just big enough to stick a gun barrel through. Cut 4 gun ports, 1 front, 1 rear, 1 left side, 1 right side. Covered them with duct tape when not in use. Had found a roll of duct tape in the bus storage. Thank God. Day 4, I focused on the doors. The front entry door was the main vulnerability. It was designed to open easily, had to be, for safety reasons. School bus doors are required to open quickly in emergencies, but that meant infected could potentially force it open if they pushed hard enough. I reinforced the door from inside. Used removed seat frames to create a barrier. Stacked the seat frames against the door. Used bungee cords and rope to secure them. Now if something pushed on the door from outside, it would hit the seat frames first. We'd have to push through 100 pounds of steel before reaching the actual door mechanism. The rear emergency door was easier. I blocked it completely. Stacked 4 seat frames against it. Made it impossible to open from inside or outside. I'd eliminated that exit. Made the bus more secure but also more trap-like. Now there was only one way out, through the front door. If that door got blocked or jammed, I'd be trapped. Couldn't escape, would die inside this bus. It was a risk, but necessary. Security over escape options. Survival over comfort. Day 5, I heard vehicles on the county road. The first vehicles I'd heard since the outbreak started. I ran to a window, looked through a gap in my seat barriers. Saw them pass on the road, maybe 300 yards away. 3 trucks. Civilian trucks. Driving fast. Not stopping. Survivors. Other people. Fleeing. Evacuating. Going somewhere they thought would be safe. Part of me wanted to run out, flag them down, join them, but I didn't. Didn't know who they were. Didn't know if they were infected. Didn't know if they'd help me or hurt me. Didn't want to risk it. I stayed in the bus, let them pass, remained hidden, alone. Day 6, first snow fell. Just a dusting, maybe half an inch. But it was snow, it meant water, unlimited water. I went outside with every container I had, water bottles, my lunch container, even the bus trash can, collected snow, brought it inside. Let it melt. Naturally didn't want to run the engine just to melt snow, waste of fuel. Snow is about 10-to-1 ratio with water. 10 inches of snow melts to 1 inch of water. So half an inch of snow gave me about 1/20th of an inch of water when melted. Not much, but the snow would get deeper. Winter was coming. Soon I'd have feet of snow, unlimited water. I wouldn't die of thirst. That threat was eliminated. Now I just had to worry about starving to death and freezing to death. 2 threats instead of 3. Progress. Day 7. 1 week in the bus. I took stock of my situation. Physical condition, I'd lost weight. Maybe 5 pounds. I was rationing food, carefully eating maybe 800 calories per day from the old lunches I'd found under seats. Most of it was spoiled, but I ate it anyway. Got mild food poisoning on day 4. Spent 6 hours vomiting and having diarrhea. Lost a lot of fluids, but survived. Now I was more careful, smelled everything before eating. Avoided anything with obvious mold. But 800 calories per day wasn't enough. Human body needs 1,800 to 2,000 calories per day to maintain weight. I was running a 1,000 plus calorie daily deficit. My body was consuming itself, burning fat stores. Soon it would start burning muscle. I was slowly starving. Food would run out completely in maybe another week. 2 weeks if I really stretched it. Then I'd have 0 calories coming in. Then I'd starve quickly. I had maybe 2 weeks before I'd be too weak to move. 3 weeks before I'd die. I needed to find food, needed to hunt, needed to scavenge, needed something. Day 8. I left the bus to explore. First time leaving the immediate area. I walked carefully through the forest. Didn't want to get lost. Didn't want to encounter infected. Followed the stream I'd found earlier. Figured it might lead to something useful. A house, a cabin, an abandoned vehicle. After a mile I found it. An old hunting cabin. Small, maybe 20 feet by 20 feet. Wooden construction. Door was closed but not locked. I approached carefully, listened for movement inside. Heard nothing. I pushed open the door. The cabin was empty, abandoned, but it had supplies, I found. Canned food, 6 cans beans, soup, vegetables, dried food, pasta, rice, oatmeal. About 5 pounds total. Water bottles, 12 bottles. All full. About 3 gallons. Camping supplies, sleeping bag, better blankets, lantern matches. Hunting equipment, rifle, .308, Winchester, Bolton, plus 1 box of emote rounds, knives, hunting knife, fixed blade, very sharp, miscellaneous rope, tarp, first aid supplies, cooking pot. I couldn't believe my luck. This was enough supplies to survive a month, maybe more, and a rifle, an actual weapon. I could hunt now, could defend myself effectively. I made 3 trips, carried everything back to the bus, loaded it all into storage compartments, organized it carefully. This was my survival cache. This would keep me alive. The rifle was beautiful. Remington Model 700, classic hunting rifle, chambered in .308. Winchester, one of the most common hunting cartridges in America, used for deer, elk, moose. Powerful enough to kill large game, accurate at long range. Perfect survival weapon. I checked the rifle. It was loaded 5 rounds in the internal magazine, plus the 20 rounds in the box I'd found. 25 rounds total. Not a lot, but enough if I was careful. Had to make every shot count. Day 9, I saw my first wildlife. A deer doe, maybe 120 pounds, standing at the edge of the clearing, grazing, about 80 yards from the bus. I grabbed the rifle, opened one of my gun ports, rested the barrel on the window frame, took aim. The deer was broadside, perfect shot angle. I aimed for the heart and lungs, the vital area behind the shoulder. Standard hunting shot. I took a breath, let it out halfway, held, squeezed the trigger slowly. The rifle fired. The recoil kicked against my shoulder harder than I expected. The sound was deafening in the enclosed bus. My ears rang. The deer dropped. Didn't run, just dropped. Dead before it hit the ground. Perfect shot. Clean kill. But now I had a problem. The gunshot was loud. Very loud. Echoed through the forest. Carried for miles, probably. Every infected within earshot would investigate. Would come toward the sound. I'd just announced my location to every infected in the area. I watched through the gun ports, waited. Sure enough, within 5 minutes, I saw movement. Infected emerging from the forest, walking toward the gunshot, toward the dead deer, toward the bus. I counted them for infected. Walking into the clearing, finding the deer. They started feeding on it, tearing at the carcass. I watched in horror as they consumed my kill, my food, but then they wandered off. After maybe 20 minutes of feeding, they lost interest, just walked away. Left the deer partially consumed, but still mostly intact. I waited another hour, made sure they were really gone. Then I left the bus, ran to the deer, used my hunting knife to field dress it quickly. cut away the sections the infected had touched, couldn't risk eating contaminated meat. That left maybe 60 pounds of clean meat. I couldn't carry it all at once. Made 3 trips, brought all the meat back to the bus. My hands and clothes were covered in blood, but I had food. Real food. Protein. Maybe 100,000 calories total if I consumed everything. Problem, I had no refrigeration, no way to preserve the meat beyond keeping it cold. But it was November now. Temperature was below freezing most of the time. I could store the meat outside the bus, let it freeze naturally. Frozen meat would keep for months. I cut the meat into portions, wrapped each portion in plastic bags, stored them in the external storage compartments under the bus. It was cold, there below freezing. The meat would freeze solid overnight. Would keep for the rest of winter. 1 deer, 1 perfect shot. Maybe 2 months of food if I rationed carefully. I'd bought myself time, bought myself survival. Day 10, I established a full routine. Morning, 7 a.m. Start engine, run heater for 30 minutes, melt snow for water, eat small breakfast, 200 calories, check surroundings through gun ports, maintenance check on bus. Midday 12 p.m. Physical activity, exercise inside bus to maintain muscle. Work on improvements, fortifications, organization, scout area, if safe, look for supplies. Threats, afternoon 3 p.m. Hunt if opportunity arose, collect more snow for water, prepare dinner 400 calories, evening 6 p.m. Start engine, run heater for 30 minutes, eat dinner slowly, clean and organize, try to sleep. This routine kept me sane, kept me purposeful, kept me alive. Days 11 to 15 passed in this routine. Nothing major happened. Saw infected occasionally. They'd wander through the clearing, investigate the bus, lose interest, wander off. Saw wildlife, deer, rabbits, even a moose once. Hunted when I could, killed 1 rabbit on day 13. Small amount of meat, but better than nothing. The weather got colder. Temperature dropped into the 20s during the day, teens at night. More snow fell. Maybe 6 inches, total accumulation by day 15. The forest turned white. Beautiful and deadly. Day 16, infected attacked the bus seriously for the first time. It was evening. I was running my 30-minute heating session. Engine was on, making noise. They heard it, heard the engine, heard signs of life. They came, I heard them approaching. Multiple infected, more than I'd seen before. I looked through the gun ports, counted them, 8 infected, coming from different directions, converging on the bus. They reached the bus simultaneously. Started pushing on it, hitting it. The bus rocked slightly. It, infected pushing hard, could move 25,000 pounds slightly. I heard them pounding on the windows, heard them scraping at the doors, heard them groaning and breathing that wet, wrong breathing. My seat barriers held. The windows flexed, but didn't break. The doors held firm, but the infected didn't give up. They kept attacking for 2 hours, constant assault. I sat in the driver's seat with a rifle ready, watched through the gun ports. If they broke through, I'd shoot. Had 24 rounds left, could kill 24 infected if every shot was perfect. But I didn't want to shoot, didn't want to waste ammunition, didn't want the noise to attract more infected. Finally, they gave up. 1 by 1, they wandered off. Lost interest. Left by 10 p.m., they were all gone. The bus had held, I'd survived. But the bus was damaged. I inspected in the morning, found dents in the exterior panels, found scratches on the windows, deep scratches where infected had clawed. Found 1 window with a crack not broken, but cracked. Structural integrity compromised. I reinforced that window with additional seat barriers. Added a second seat frame behind the first. Made it even stronger. Couldn't afford any window breaking. 1 broken window meant infected could reach inside, could grab me, could kill me. Day 20. I realized I'd been alone for 3 weeks. 3 weeks without seeing another living human. Without having a conversation. Without human contact. I talked to myself constantly. Full conversations. Sarah, you need to check the fuel today. Yes, good idea. Should also hunt if weather permits. Agreed. What's for dinner? Venison again. Same as always. Getting tired of venison. It's food. Be grateful. Insane conversations, but necessary. Without them, I'd lose language. Lose the ability to process thoughts verbally. I had to keep talking, even to myself, to maintain human cognition. I also talked to the bus. Good job today, bus. You kept me safe. Keep it up. Don't let me down. Patting the dashboard like it was a pet. Thanking the engine for starting. Apologizing when I couldn't run the heater as long as I wanted. I was losing my mind. Slowly, the isolation was doing something to my brain. Something permanent, but I couldn't stop it. Could only endure it. Hope I'd stay sane enough to survive. Day 25, a major storm hit. Not a blizzard, just a heavy snowstorm. dumped 18 inches of snow in 24 hours. The bus was buried. Snow drifted against the sides, covered the windows. I was entombed. The weight of the snow on the roof was concerning. School buses aren't designed to hold snow weight. The roof might collapse if the load got too heavy. I had to clear it. I opened the front door, had to force it against the snowdrift. Climbed onto the roof using the hood as a step. The roof was covered in 18 inches of snow. Heavy, wet snow, maybe 500 pounds total on the roof. I used my hands, didn't have a proper shovel to push snow off the roof. Took an hour of hard work. My hands were numb, my clothes were soaked. But I cleared the roof, eliminated the weight, saved the bus from potential collapse. Day 28, I killed my second deer, another doe. Same process shot. Waited for infected to investigate, retrieved the carcass, processed the meat, stored it frozen. Another 2 months of food. I was accumulating a surplus, actually building up reserves. My starvation timeline was pushed back. I might survive winter after all. Day 31, month in the bus, I took stock. Physical, lost 15 pounds total, 165 to 150. Malnourished but functional. No injuries. No sickness beyond the one food poisoning incident. Mental, deteriorating. Talking to myself constantly. Having conversations with imaginary people. Seeing things that aren't there occasionally, but still rational. Still capable of survival decisions. Supplies, food, 2 months worth, deer meat, canned goods, water, unlimited snow fuel. 70 gallons remaining, 70 days of heat ammunition, 22 rounds medicine. Adequate first aid supplies. Biggest threats. Running out of fuel, 70 days left. But winter was just starting. Infected attacks frequency, increasing isolation induced insanity, already happening, cold-related injuries, frostbite, hypothermia. I'd survived 1 month, the hardest month of my life. But I'd survived. The bus had held. The fortifications worked. The hunting worked. The water from snow worked. Everything was working. But winter was just beginning. November was the mild month. December, January, February, those were the brutal months. When temperature would drop to minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, when blizzards would rage for days, when the cold would try to kill me every single night. I'd used 30 of my 100 gallons of fuel, had 70 gallons left, 70 days of heat, but winter would last 90 days minimum. I'd run out of fuel before spring, would have to survive the last 20 days of winter with no heat. That would be the ultimate test. Would determine if I lived or died. But that was a problem for future Sarah. Present Sarah just had to survive today, then tomorrow, then the next day. 1 day at a time. That was all I could do. All anyone could do in this situation. I'd survived 30 days. Now I had to survive 70 more, and I would. Because the alternative was death. And I refused to die. Refused to give up. Refused to let the cold or the infected or the isolation win. I was Sarah Mitchell. Bus driver. Survivor. And I was going to make it to day 100, no matter what it took. Day 31 marked the beginning of real winter. November was over. December had arrived. And with it came cold that I'd never experienced before, not like this, not while living in a metal box with limited heat. The temperature dropped to 15 degrees Fahrenheit during the day, 5 degrees Fahrenheit at night. My breath froze instantly when I exhaled. The windows of the B7 with the seat barriers were covered in thick frost on the inside. Ice crystals grew in elaborate patterns on the glass, beautiful and terrifying. Inside the bus, during my heating sessions, the temperature would rise to maybe 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Comfortable enough. But the moment I shut off the engine, the cold rushed back in. Within 30 minutes, the interior temperature would drop to 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Within an hour, down to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. By morning, after 12 hours without heater, interior would be the same temperature as outside. 5 degrees Fahrenheit, cold enough to kill. I wore every piece of clothing I had. My work clothes as a base layer, 2 jackets on top. The kids' jackets I'd found wrapped around my legs like improvised pants. Wrapped in the sleeping bag I'd found at the cabin. Wrapped in blankets. Wrapped in the emergency mylar blanket. I looked like a homeless person, layers upon layers of mismatched clothing and coverings, but it kept me alive. My hands were the problem. Couldn't wear thick gloves, needed finger dexterity for tasks like loading the rifle, using tools, preparing food. But without gloves, my hands would freeze in minutes outside. Even inside the bus, my hands were constantly cold. The tips of my fingers turned white, numb, early stages of frostbite. I'd rub my hands together constantly, tuck them under my armpits, blow warm breath on them, do anything to maintain circulation. But it wasn't enough. The damage was accumulating. By day 35, the tips of my fingers were permanently numb. Couldn't feel them anymore. Frostbite had set in. Day 32, I saw the wolf again, the same grey wolf I'd seen weeks ago. It was standing at the edge of the clearing, just watching the bus. We made eye contact through the gun port to survivors, to predators, assessing each other. The wolf had lost weight. I could see its ribs. It was starving too. Prey was scarce in winter. Deer moved to lower elevations, rabbits hid in burrows. The wolf was hungry, desperate. I had an idea. I took a chunk of frozen deer meat from my storage, maybe 2 pounds, opened the front door carefully, tossed the meat into the snow about 20 feet from the bus, closed the door quickly. The wolf approached cautiously, sniffed the meat, looked at the bus, looked back at the meat, made a decision, grabbed the meat, and ran off into the forest. I did this every few days. Shared my surplus meat with the wolf. Not out of kindness, out of strategy. The wolf was a predator. If it was fed, it might stick around. Might help defend the territory from other threats. Might even alert me to approaching infected with its behavior. By day 40, the wolf would approach the bus regularly, would wait at the edge of the clearing. I'd toss it meat. It would eat. Then it would lie down in the snow, watching the forest. Guarding, in a sense. We had formed an alliance. A survival partnership, human and wolf, working together to survive winter. Day 35, I heard the radio crackle. Not the AM/FM radio that had been static for weeks. The emergency radio. The one that received automated emergency broadcasts. I grabbed it, turned up the volume. National Guard establishing safe zones in major population centers. Kalispell, Missoula, Billings. If you can reach these locations safely, evacuation and supplies available. Military convoys running supply routes. Highway 2 and Highway 93 partially cleared. Infected presence reduced but not eliminated. Travel at own risk. Repeat. The broadcast cut out, came back, cut out again. The transmission was weak, breaking up, but the message was clear. There was organized response. Safe zones existed. Rescue was possible if I could reach it. Kalispell was 30 miles away. I had a full tank of diesel well, 70 gallons, enough to drive there easily. I could leave right now, start the bus, drive to Kalispell, reach safety, end this nightmare. But I didn't, because driving meant exposing myself, meant leaving my fortified position, meant driving through 30 miles of potentially infected field roads, meant trusting that the safe zone was real, was still operational, would accept me. And I'd heard the phrase travel at own risk. That meant people were dying trying to reach safe zones. Meant the roads were dangerous. Meant going might be worse than staying. I made the calculation. 70% chance I'd die trying to reach Kalispell. 30% chance I'd survive the winter in the bus. The math favored staying. So I stayed, but knowing that safety existed, that there were people, civilization, warmth just 30 miles away made staying harder, made the isolation more painful, made every cold night more unbearable, because I knew I was choosing this. Choosing to suffer. Choosing to stay in this frozen metal prison when rescue was just a short drive away. Day 38. The temperature hit -10 degrees Fahrenheit, the coldest day yet. My 30-minute heating sessions could barely keep the interior above 30 degrees Fahrenheit. I wore every piece of clothing, huddled in the sleeping bag, shivered constantly. But something interesting happened. I looked through the gun ports and saw infected in the clearing. 3 of them, but they weren't moving, they were just standing there. Frozen in place, literally frozen. I waited an hour, they didn't move. I risked leaving the bus. Approached one carefully with the rifle ready, got within 10 feet. Still no movement. I reached out with a stick, poked it. The infected toppled over, fell like a statue, shattered slightly when it hit the ground. It was frozen solid. The extreme cold had frozen the bodily fluids, frozen the muscles. The infected was technically still alive. The virus or whatever it was remained active but couldn't move, couldn't function, was a statue of ice. I pushed over the other 2 frozen infected. They fell, shattered, became piles of frozen meat and bone. This changed everything. Below -10 degrees Fahrenheit, infected froze, became immobile, became harmless. Winter wasn't just trying to kill me, it was killing the infected too, or at least immobilizing them. The cold was my ally, my protector, my weapon. Over the following weeks, I found more frozen infected. They'd wander into the area, freeze overnight, become statues. I'd find them in the morning. Sometimes they'd thaw slightly during the day if the temperature rose above 10 degrees Fahrenheit, would start moving again slowly, stiffly. But then night would come, temperature would drop, they'd freeze again. I started collecting them, not the whole bodies too heavy, too gross, but parts, frozen arms, frozen legs. I'd stack them at the perimeter of the clearing, create a barrier, create a wall of frozen infected body parts, morbid, horrifying but effective. Other infected would see the bodies, smell the decay, sense danger, would avoid the area. The frozen corpses became my defensive perimeter. Day 42, I heard helicopters, multiple helicopters, flying high, military helicopters probably. I ran outside, waved my arms, screamed, jumped, did everything to attract attention. They flew overhead. I could see them clearly, big transport helicopters. Chinooks probably, flying south, probably heading to Kalispell or Missoula, carrying supplies or evacuating survivors. I thought they'd see me. Thought they'd notice the bright yellow school bus in the forest clearing. Thought they'd circle back, investigate, rescue me. They didn't. They flew past, disappeared over the horizon, gone. I stood in the snow, watched them disappear, felt hope die. They'd flown right over me. Had probably seen the bus, how could they miss it? Bright yellow against white snow. But they hadn't stopped, hadn't investigated, hadn't cared. Maybe they thought the bus was abandoned. Maybe they were focused on their mission and couldn't deviate. Maybe they'd noted my vocation and would send someone later. Maybe, probably not. I was alone, truly alone. Even when help flew directly overhead, it didn't stop, didn't save me. I was on my own, had to save myself. Nobody else would. Day 45. I killed my third deer, a buck this time, larger than the does, maybe 180 pounds, massive animal. I took the shot from 100 yards, perfect hit, the deer dropped, but the gunshot attracted infected, more than usual. Maybe because it was daytime, maybe because more infected were in the area. I watched through the gun ports, counted them, 12 infected, emerging from the forest, walking toward the gunshot, toward the dead deer, toward my food. They reached a deer, started feeding. I watched in frustration as they consumed my kill. But I noticed something. They were moving slowly, stiffly. The cold was affecting them. They weren't as coordinated as infected in warm weather. The freezing temperature was slowing them down, weakening them. After 30 minutes they'd consumed maybe 20 pounds of the deer. Then they wandered off, left the rest. Maybe the cold was affecting their endurance too. Maybe they couldn't sustain activity in extreme cold. I waited another hour, made absolutely sure they were gone. Then I left the bus, ran to the deer field, dressed it quickly. My hands were screaming from the cold. Handling raw meat in 10 degrees Fahrenheit weather with bare hands was agony, but I worked fast. Cut away the contaminated sections, took the clean meat, maybe 120 pounds total, a huge haul, made 6 trips to carry all the meat back to the bus. Stored it in the external compartments. It froze solid within hours. This deer would feed me for 3 months. 3 months. I'd just secured my survival through the rest of winter. Day 50. I did the fuel calculation again. Needed to figure out exactly how much longer my fuel would last. Starting fuel, 100 gallons used so far. 50 gallons, 50 days at 1 gallon per day remaining. 50 gallons, days until spring. Roughly March 15th would be safe. That was day 135. I was on day 50, so 85 days remaining. Fuel remaining. 50 gallons, days remaining. 85 days fuel per day available. 50 divided by 85 equals 0.59 gallons per day. I was burning 1 gallon per day, 60 minutes of heat, but I only had 0.59 gallons per day available. I was over budget. Way over budget. I'd run out of fuel at day 100 mid-February, the coldest part of winter. I'd have to survive 35 days with no heat at all, in temperatures that could drop to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. That would kill me. Simple as that. I wouldn't survive 35 days of minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit weather with no heat source. I'd freeze to death long before spring came. I needed to reduce consumption, immediately, drastically. New heating schedule, 40 minutes per day, instead of 60 minutes. That was 0.67 gallons per day. Still over budget, but closer. That would make my fuel last to day 113 early March. I'd only have to survive 22 days without heat. Still brutal, still potentially lethal, but better odds than 35 days. Or I could go even lower, 30 minutes per day. That was 0.5 gallons per day. That would make my fuel last to day 150 late March. Spring would arrive. I wouldn't need heat after that. But 30 minutes per day meant 23.5 hours per day without heat. Meant spending almost the entire day in freezing cold. Meant accelerating my frostbite. Meant constant suffering. I chose 40 minutes per day, 20 minutes morning, 20 minutes evening. It was a compromise. Gave me enough heat to survive, but left a small buffer for emergencies. If a blizzard hit, if I needed extra heat to survive, I'd use it. Better to survive today and risk freezing later than freeze today trying to save fuel for tomorrow. Day 55. Infected tried something new. They tried to climb onto the bus roof. I heard them at night. Scratching sounds above me. Movement on the roof. I grabbed the rifle, looked up at the ceiling. The metal roof was flexing slightly, something heavy was walking on it. Infected, they'd figured out they could climb onto the hood of the bus, then onto the roof. They were walking around up there, looking for a way in. The roof hatches were locked from inside. They couldn't open them, but they were trying. I could hear them pulling on the hatches, testing them. If they broke through a roof hatch, if they figured out how to smash through the fiberglass hatch cover, they'd drop right into the bus, right on top of me. I'd be dead before I could react. I banged on the ceiling with the rifle, but made loud noises, scared them off. They jumped down from the roof. I heard them hit the ground, heard them wander away. But they came back the next night, and the night after. Different infected. Same behavior. They were learning, sharing information somehow, or just independently discovering the same weakness. I reinforced the roof hatches from inside, used seat frames and rope to create barriers over each hatch, made it impossible to open from inside, but also created a barrier that would slow down any infected that broke through. Give me time to react, time to shoot. Day 60, 2 months in the bus, I realized I was losing track of time. Days blurred together. Without a calendar, without regular routine, without any external reference, I was forgetting what day it was. I'd check my tally marks on the bus frame, 60 scratches, but I couldn't remember if I'd made today's mark yet. Couldn't remember if it was morning or evening. Couldn't remember if I'd eaten yet. Time was becoming meaningless. The only thing that mattered was surviving until the next heating session. Surviving the cold. Surviving the hunger. Surviving the isolation. The concept of days was abstract, irrelevant. But I forced myself to keep tracking, kept making tally marks religiously. Because if I lost track of time completely, I'd lose track of fuel consumption, would lose track of my survival calculations, would die without understanding why. Day 63, I had a visitor, human visitor, not infected, actual human. I heard a vehicle approach, looked through the gun port, saw a pickup truck driving slowly through the forest. It stopped near my clearing. A man got out. He was armed, rifle slung over his shoulder, looked like a hunter, looked alive, looked healthy. He saw the bus, approached cautiously, called out, "Hello, anyone in there? I'm not infected. Just looking for survivors." I grabbed my rifle, didn't respond, didn't trust this. Could be a trap, could be raiders, could be someone dangerous. He got closer. "I can see your fortifications, your gun ports, you've been living here." "Smart, I'm with a group. We have a settlement, 20 people. Safe, warm, food. You should come with us." I wanted to believe him, wanted to leave this frozen prison, wanted warmth and safety and human contact. But I didn't trust it, didn't trust anyone anymore. "Where's your settlement?" I called out. My voice was rough, hadn't spoken to another human in 60 days, barely recognized my own voice. "About 15 miles south. Old ranch property. We've fortified it. Have food stores. Have heat. Have community. You'd be welcome. We need more people. I'm fine here." "You're not fine. You're living in a bus in winter. You're going to freeze to death. Come with us. You'll be safe. I'm safe here. You're alone. Isolation will kill you as surely as cold. Come with us." I wanted to, God, I wanted to, but I couldn't. Couldn't trust him, couldn't risk it. What if the settlement was dangerous? What if they'd rob me, kill me? What if they were cannibals or slavers or worse? The bus was hell, but it was known hell, predictable hell. I'd learned to survive it. Going with him was unknown, unpredictable, maybe better, maybe worse. I couldn't risk it. "I'm staying here, but thank you." He stood there for a moment, shook his head. "You're making a mistake. Winter's going to get worse, much worse. You won't survive it alone. I'll survive. I hope so. We'll come back in a month, check on you. If you change your mind, we're at the old Henderson Ranch. Ask anyone at the safe zone in Kalispell, they know us. We're the Henderson group." He got back in his truck, drove away, disappeared. I sat in the bus, shaking, not from cold, from emotion. I'd just turned down rescue, turned down warmth and safety and human contact, chosen to stay in this frozen metal box, chosen isolation over community. Had I made the right choice? I didn't know, wouldn't know unless I survived or didn't survive, but I'd made the choice. Now I had to live with it, or die with it. Day 65, a massive blizzard hit, the worst storm I'd experienced. Wind gusted to 60 miles per hour. Snow fell so thick I couldn't see 10 feet from the bus. Temperature dropped to minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, with wind chill around, minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The bus rocked in the wind, violently. I thought it would flip, thought the wind would tear it apart. I could hear the metal groaning, could feel the entire structure flexing. Snow accumulated on the roof, hundreds of pounds of snow piling up. I had to make a decision, run the heater more than my 40-minute ration, or freeze. The interior temperature was dropping fast down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. I was wrapped in every covering I had, shivering violently, teeth chattering. Early stages of hypothermia setting in. I started the engine, ran the heater, watched the fuel gauge drop, burned through 3 gallons in that storm, 3 days worth of fuel, but necessary. Without it, I would have frozen to death, would have died in my sleep, would have become another frozen corpse in the Montana wilderness. The storm lasted 36 hours. By the time it ended, I'd burned 4 gallons total, 4 days of fuel. My carefully calculated fuel budget was destroyed. I was now guaranteed to run out of fuel before spring, guaranteed to face weeks of winter with no heat. But I was alive, and alive with a fuel problem was better than dead with perfect fuel discipline. Day 67. I dug out from the blizzard. The bus was completely buried. Snow had drifted 6 feet high against the passenger side. The windows were covered. The doors were blocked. I was entombed. I forced open the front door, had to push with my entire body weight. Snow cascaded inside, but I created an opening and climbed out into the snow. The clearing was unrecognizable. Everything was white, buried. The forest was silent, pristine, deadly, beautiful. I spent the entire day digging out the bus. Clearing snow from the roof had to. The weight would eventually collapse it. Clearing snow from around the doors and windows. Creating channels for airflow, making sure the exhaust pipe was clear. Carbon monoxide would kill me if the exhaust was blocked. My hands were destroyed by the end of the day. Frostbite had progressed from my fingertips to my fingers. 3 fingers on my right hand were completely numb, turning black, dead tissue. I'd lose those fingers eventually, but I'd survive. That was what mattered. Day 70, the temperature hit minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, the coldest day yet. My 20-minute heating sessions could barely raise the interior temperature above 25 degrees Fahrenheit. I wore every piece of clothing, wrapped in every covering, did jumping jacks inside the bus to generate body heat, anything to survive. The cold was crushing, overwhelming, all-consuming. I couldn't think about anything except cold, couldn't focus on anything except surviving the next hour, the next minute. The cold had become my entire world, but I survived. Day 70, marked my 70th tally mark, 2 months and 10 days. 30 days to go until day 100, 30 more days until my fuel would run out. Then the real test would begin. Then I'd discover if I could survive without heat, without protection, with nothing but will and stubbornness and desperate hope. I was Sarah Mitchell, bus driver, survivor, living in a yellow metal box in the Montana wilderness, and I was going to survive, because the alternative was unacceptable, because I refused to die, because somewhere, somehow, spring would come, and I would see it. Day 71, I did the final fuel calculation, the one that would determine if I lived or died. Current fuel, 46 gallons remaining current day. Day 71 target, day 135 spring. Safe temperatures, days remaining, 64 days fuel budget. 46 divided by 64 equals 0.72 gallons per day. But I was burning 0.67 gallons per day, 40 minutes of heat. That was under budget. Technically, I should make it, should have fuel until day 145 days into spring. Safe temperatures, but that assumed no emergencies. No blizzards requiring extra heat. No cold snaps dropping temperature below minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. No mistakes, no miscalculations. Perfect execution for 64 more days. I'd already failed perfect execution once. The blizzard on day 65 had cost me 4 extra gallons. Would there be more blizzards? Probably. Would I survive them without extra heat? Probably not. The math was tight, dangerously tight. I was gambling my life on weather patterns I couldn't control and fuel discipline that required superhuman consistency. Day 73. My wolf companion disappeared. I hadn't seen it in 3 days. Usually it showed up every day or two, waiting for food. But now nothing. It was gone. Either it had died, frozen, starved, or killed by infected. Or it had left, found better hunting grounds, joined a pack, moved on. Either way, I was alone again. My only companion for the past 40 days was gone. The isolation was complete again. I missed the wolf. Missed having another living creature near me. Missed feeling like I wasn't the only survivor in the forest. Its absence made the clearing feel emptier. Made the forest feel more hostile. Made me feel more vulnerable. Day 75. Infected stopped coming. I hadn't seen an infected in 5 days. Not one. The frozen statues from previous weeks were still there, my defensive perimeter of frozen corpses, but no new infected appeared. The clearing was quiet, empty, dead. I didn't understand why at first. Then I realized, the extreme cold was killing them faster than they could reach me. They'd wander through the forest, freeze before reaching the clearing, become statues elsewhere. The cold had created a dead zone, an area too cold for infected to survive long enough to reach. I was protected, not by my fortifications, not by my rifle, but by winter itself. The cold that was trying to kill me was killing the infected first. Nature was selecting the humans who could generate heat, who had fire, clothing, shelter, survived. The infected who couldn't generate heat froze. Winter was my ally, my weapon, my shield. As long as winter lasted, I was safe from infected. But when spring came, when temperatures rose, the infected would thaw, would become mobile again, would swarm, would attack. I'd survived winter, but spring might kill me. Day 80, I started rationing food. I'd been eating about 1,500 calories per day, enough to maintain minimal function, but my frozen meat stores were depleting faster than expected. I'd been feeding the wolf. I'd been eating more during the blizzard to generate body heat. I'd been miscalculating portion sizes. I had maybe 30 pounds of meat left. At 1,500 calories per day, that was roughly 20 more days of food. Day 100, the same day my fuel would run out. After day 100, I'd have no heat and no food. I'd have to hunt, but hunting meant using ammunition. I had 19 rounds left. Hunting meant going outside in post-winter conditions. Hunting meant risking failure, missing a shot, scaring away game, starving because I couldn't kill. I reduced my food intake to 1,200 calories per day. It wasn't enough. My body was consuming itself again, but it would make the food last to day 125, give me a buffer. Give me time to hunt after day 100 without immediate starvation pressure. Day 82. I heard vehicles again, multiple vehicles, a convoy on the county road. I looked through the gun ports, saw them clearly, military trucks. 5 of them, driving slowly, organized, professional. I ran outside, screamed, waved my arms, fired 3 shots into the air, my signal, my SOS, my desperate cry for help. They heard, the convoy stopped. I could see soldiers getting out of trucks, see them pointing toward my clearing, see them discussing something. Then they got back in the trucks, started driving again, left. They'd heard me, seen my location, decided not to investigate, decided not to rescue me again. I fell to my knees in the snow, screamed, not words, just sound. Pure frustration, pure despair, pure rage. They'd heard me, they'd ignored me. I was 40 miles from Kalispell, less than an hour's drive. They could rescue me in less than an hour, but they didn't. Didn't care, didn't have time, didn't think one survivor in a bus was worth the effort. I'd survived 82 days for nothing, for this. To be ignored by the people supposed to save me. To be abandoned by the authority I'd been trusting would eventually come. I was on my own, completely, permanently. Nobody was coming, nobody cared. I would survive winter alone or die alone. Those were my only options. Day 85, another massive blizzard. Worse than the first. Wind gusting to 70 miles per hour. Snow so thick the world disappeared. Temperature dropping to minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill at minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The bus was being torn apart. The wind was so strong it rocked the 25,000-pound vehicle like a toy. I could hear metal tearing, could hear windows cracking, could hear the roof groaning under snow weight. The bus was failing, physically failing. The structure couldn't take much more. I ran the heater continuously for 18 hours, burned through 18 gallons of fuel. 18 days of heat, gone, used in one storm, but necessary. Without it, the interior temperature would have dropped to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. I would have frozen solid, would have died in my sleep like the infected outside. The storm ended on day 87. I checked the fuel gauge, 28 gallons remaining. I was on day 87. Spring was day 135. That was 48 days away. I had 28 gallons for 48 days. That was 0.58 gallons per day. That was 35 minutes of heat per day. But I'd been running 40 minutes per day, 6-7 gallons. I was over budget again. The blizzard had destroyed my fuel calculations completely. I was now guaranteed to run out of fuel around day 130, 5 days before spring. 5 days when temperatures could still drop to minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit. 5 days that might kill me. I reduced my heating to 30 minutes per day. 15 minutes morning, 15 minutes evening. That would make my fuel last to day 143, 8 days into spring. Safe temperatures, I'd survive. But 30 minutes per day meant 23.5 hours without heat, meant constant cold. meant accelerated frostbite, meant suffering beyond anything I'd experienced so far, but it meant survival. So I did it. Day 93 months in the bus. I counted my losses. Physical. Weight. Lost 47 pounds total, 165 to 118 frostbite. 3 fingers, completely numb, will lose them. All toes affected, nose and cheeks damaged. Muscles severe wasting, can barely stand without dizziness. Vision, snow blindness on day 85, temporary but recurring. Hearing, partial hearing loss and left ear infection from moisture. Mental, talking to myself constantly, full conversations with imaginary people. Hallucinating regularly, seeing people who aren't there. Time, confusion, forgetting what day it is. Losing hours, emotional numbness, can't feel fear or joy anymore. Just survival, suicidal ideation, daily thoughts about ending it. Only survival instinct prevents action. Supplies. Fuel, 28 gallons, enough for 56 days, at 0.5 gallons day. Food, 20 pounds meat, 25 days at reduced rations. Ammo, 16 rounds used, 3 for signaling, 6 for hunting. Medical, almost depleted, used bandages for frostbite. Pain medication almost gone. I was dying. Slowly but surely, my body was failing. My mind was breaking. The bus that had saved me was becoming my tomb. 3 months of winter had reduced me to a barely functional skeleton wrapped in frozen clothing. Talking to hallucinations, counting days until fuel ran out and I froze to death. But I was alive, still fighting, still refusing to die. That had to count for something. Day 93, I saw the Henderson group again. The same pickup truck, the same man. He got out, approached the bus, called out, "Hello bus or Bible? You still alive in there?" I didn't respond immediately. Didn't trust my voice. Finally managed. "Still here. Jesus, you actually survived. I didn't think you would. Thought we'd find a frozen corpse. But you're alive. Barely come with us now, please. You've proven your point. You can survive alone, but you don't have to. Come to the settlement. Warm food, medical care, people. You need people." I wanted to say yes. Wanted to leave so badly. But the bus had become part of me. Had become my identity. Leaving it felt like betraying myself. Like admitting defeat. Like wasting 93 days of suffering. How much longer until spring? Maybe 6 weeks. But the worst is over. Temperatures are rising slightly. Days are getting longer. You'll make it if you've made it this far. 6 weeks, 42 days. I had 28 gallons of fuel. Could make it last 56 days if I was disciplined. I could survive. Could actually survive winter completely alone in a bus. Could prove it was possible. I'm staying, but thank you. You're insane. You know that. Clinically insane. The isolation has broken something in your brain. Probably, but I'm staying. He shook his head. I'll come back in 3 weeks. Final offer. If you're still alive. If you still refuse, we won't come back again. Understood? Understood. He left. I watched him drive away. Wondered if I'd just made another fatal mistake. Wondered if pride was worth dying for. Wondered if survival alone meant anything if it destroyed my mind in the process. Day 95. My food ran out. Completely. I'd eaten the last of my frozen deer meat. Had nothing left. 0 calories coming in. My body was now consuming itself completely. Ketosis. Starvation mode. Organ failure would begin in days. I had to hunt, no choice. Had to kill something or die. I watched through the gun ports for hours, saw nothing. No deer, no rabbits, no wildlife at all. The forest was empty. Animals had migrated to lower elevations, following the food, following survival. Then, on day 96, I saw a rabbit. Small, maybe 3 pounds. Maybe 3,000 calories total. Enough for 2 days if I ate everything, not much. But something. I took the shot from 60 yards. Hit it. Clean kill. But the gunshot echoed. Carried would attract anything within miles. I didn't care anymore. Didn't care about infected. Didn't care about noise, discipline. Just needed food. Needed calories. Needed to not die of starvation. I ran outside. Grabbed the rabbit. Ran back to the bus. No infected came. The cold had killed them all, or frozen them all. I was safe. I skinned the rabbit with my hunting knife. My hands could barely grip the knife. Frostbite had destroyed my dexterity, but I managed. Cut away the pelt. Exposed the meat. Maybe 2 pounds of usable meat. I ate it raw, couldn't risk fire, couldn't waste fuel, heating it. Just ate it raw, cold, frozen. Tore chunks off with my teeth. Swallowed without chewing much. Got it down, got those calories into my body. It was disgusting. The texture, the taste, the knowledge of what I was doing, but it was food. It was life. It kept me alive for day 96 and 97. Day 97, the engine wouldn't start. I turned the key, heard the starter turn, heard the engine try to catch. But it wouldn't start, just cranked and cranked. No ignition, no diesel rumble, nothing. I checked everything I could think of. Battery was fine, showed 12 volts, fuel was fine, could see it in the tank. Checked connections, checked everything I understood about diesel engines. Then I realized the fuel had gelled. Diesel fuel gels below 15 degrees Fahrenheit. The paraffin wax in the fuel crystallizes, clogs the fuel filter, prevents flow to the engine. I'd used winter diesel fuel additives back in November, but they'd worn off, and the fuel in my tank sitting, unused for weeks, had gelled solid. I couldn't start the engine, couldn't run the heater. My fuel was useless, might as well be empty. I was on day 97. I'd survived 97 days, 3 days short of 100, 3 days short of my goal, and now I had no heat. The interior temperature was minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit, same as outside. I would freeze to death in the next 24 to 48 hours. I did everything I could, wrapped myself in every covering, did jumping jacks until exhaustion, generated body heat through exercise, ate the last of my rabbit to fuel my metabolism. But it wasn't enough. By the evening of day 97, I was hypothermic, core temperature dropping. Shivering had stopped, bad sign, meant my body was too cold to shiver. I was slurring when I talked to myself, was confused about where I was seeing things that weren't there. I was dying. After 97 days of survival, after enduring everything winter could throw at me, I was dying because of gelled fuel, because of a technical problem I couldn't fix, because I was 3 days short of 100. I lay down on the bus seats, wrapped in my sleeping bag, accepted death. I'd fought for 97 days. That was enough. That was more than most people could do. I'd survived almost 100 days in a bus in Montana winter. That counted for something, even if nobody knew, even if nobody cared. I'd done it. I closed my eyes, waited for cold to take me, waited for sleep that would turn into death, waited for the end. Day 98, I woke up. Somehow, against all odds, I was alive. The morning sun was shining through the windows. Temperature inside had risen to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, still freezing, but warmer than last night. I was alive, barely, but alive. My body hadn't given up, had kept fighting, had refused to die even when I'd accepted it. I heard vehicles, real vehicles, not hallucinations, real engine sounds, coming closer. I looked through a gun port, saw them, military trucks, a convoy, maybe 10 vehicles, heavy trucks, transport trucks. They were driving slowly through the forest, clearing roads, searching for survivors. I didn't have strength to run outside, could barely move, but I grabbed the rifle with numb hands, fired 3 shots through the gun port. My last 3 shots, my final signal. The convoy stopped, heard the gunfire. Soldiers jumped out of trucks, spread out, searching for the source. One of them saw the bus, pointed, others converged. They approached cautiously, didn't know if I was hostile or friendly. They reached the bus, called out, "Anyone alive in there?" I tried to respond, my voice wouldn't work, just rasping sounds. But I banged on the metal, made noise, showed I was alive. They forced open the front door, found me, a National Guard. Sergeant, I could see his rank patch, climbed inside, looked at me. His face changed. Horror, shock, disgust maybe. "Jesus Christ, how long have you been in here?" I held up fingers. 9 fingers, then 8 more. 98, day 98. "You've been living in this bus for 98 days, through the entire winter." I nodded alone, nodded again. "Ma'am, we're going to get you out of here. Get your medical attention. You're going to be okay. You survived. You actually survived. That's incredible." They lifted me, carried me out of the bus, into sunlight. Real sunlight. I hadn't seen direct sunlight in 98 days. The brightness was painful, blinding, but beautiful. They loaded me into a warm truck, wrapped me in blankets, gave me hot water to drink, started treating my frostbite, started the process of bringing me back from the edge of death. I looked back at the bus as they drove away. My yellow prison, my fortress, my home for 98 days. It was covered in snow, damaged, dented, covered in frozen corpses at the perimeter, a monument to survival, a testament to human stubbornness, a symbol of refusing to die even when death seemed certain. Day 100 came while I was in the field hospital at the Kalispell safe zone. I marked it mentally 100 days. I'd made it, against everything, against all odds, against winter and infection and isolation and starvation and cold. I'd made it. I'm writing this 6 months after rescue. It's August now. Summer, temperature is 75 degrees Fahrenheit, warm, pleasant, but I can't enjoy it. Can't feel comfortable in any temperature. My body's thermoregulation is destroyed. I'm either too cold or too hot. Never just right, never comfortable. I live in the Flathead Survivor Settlement. Population about 600 now. We've got electricity, running water, organized agriculture, functional society. It's civilization, it's safety, it's everything I should want, but I can't adapt, can't function in society, can't handle being around people. The isolation broke something fundamental in my brain. I need to be alone, need space, need quiet. Groups terrify me. Crowds trigger panic attacks. I live in a small cabin on the edge of the settlement. Alone, always alone. Because that's what I've become. The physical damage is permanent. I lost 3 fingers on my right hand to frostbite. They amputated at the knuckle. Lost 2 toes on each foot. My face is scarred from frostbite damage. My hearing is partially gone in 1 ear. I have chronic pain in my joints from the cold damage. I'm partially disabled at age 35. The psychological damage is worse. I have severe PTSD, nightmares every night, dreaming of freezing, of running out of fuel, of dying in the bus. Can't sleep more than 2 hours at a time. Can't handle enclosed spaces. Can't handle cold. Even 60 degrees Fahrenheit makes me panic. I wear a jacket in 80 degrees Fahrenheit weather. People think I'm insane. Maybe I am. I talk to myself constantly still. Full conversations with people who aren't there. The habit formed in the bus won't stop. Can't stop. It's how my brain works now. Doctors call it isolation-induced psychosis. I call it survival adaptation. I call it what I had to become to not die. They wanted to scrap the bus, said it was damaged beyond repair, but I asked them not to. Asked them to bring it to the settlement. They did. It's parked at the edge of town now, a memorial, a reminder. I visit it sometimes, stand outside it, look at it, remember the 98 days I spent inside, remember the cold, the hunger, the fear, the isolation. Remember becoming something less than human and more than human simultaneously. The yellow paint is faded, the windows are cracked. The fortifications are still their seat barriers, visible through the windows. The dents from infected attacks are visible. The tally marks I scratched into the frame are visible. 98 marks, 98 days, 98 proofs that I survived. People ask me if it was worth it. If surviving alone for 98 days in a bus was better than going to the settlement on day 60 or day 93 when I had chances. If the pride of surviving alone was worth the permanent damage to my body and mind. I don't know, can't answer that. I survived. That's all I know. I survived when most people didn't. Survived when I shouldn't have. Survived through combination of skill, luck, stubbornness, and some fundamental unwillingness to die even when dying would be easier. I'm Sarah Mitchell, former school bus driver, current survivor, living with permanent damage from 98 days in a fortified bus during Montana winter apocalypse. I lost fingers, lost toes, lost my mind in some ways, but I kept my life, and that's what mattered. That's what still matters. The bus saved me. The yellow fortress that I turned from a child transport into a winter survival shelter. It kept me alive through the coldest, darkest, loneliest days of my life. It protected me when nothing else could. It was hell and salvation simultaneously. Sometimes I sit inside it, in the driver's seat, like old times, remember my old life, my old roots, my 23 kids, my normal days, try to remember who I was before day 1, before the outbreak, before the first became the bus survivor, but I can't remember clearly. That person died somewhere between day 1 and day 98. That person froze to death in the Montana winter. What came out on day 98 was someone else, someone adapted to survive alone. Someone broken and changed and fundamentally different. I survived 98 days in a school bus during winter apocalypse. Lost part of myself, gained something else. Don't know if it was a fair trade. Don't know if survival alone is enough. Don't know anything except that I'm still here, still breathing, still existing, still fighting even when there's nothing left to fight. Stay warm, stay together, stay human if you can. And remember, survival is always possible, even in a bus, even in winter. Even alone, you just have to want it enough. Have to refuse to die enough. Have to become whatever you need to become to keep breathing one more day. I survived, and I'm still here. Still broken, still changed, still alive, and that's enough. It has to be enough, because it's all I have. Thank you for listening.